name is LoeyLane, and I'm so excited to tell you guys about my new podcast, Internet Urban Legends, with my BFF Snitchery.
We deep dive into the darkest corners of the internet to uncover whether some of the most notorious web myths are hoax or whether they're con. Internet Urban Legends, available exclusively on Spotify.
Hello, my loves. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Hi, hello. My name is Loey, and holy crap, we did it, Reddit. After complaining about how much of a beast this project was for me to tackle for what feels like months, I am finally here to you today with part 1 of 4 of the disturbing YouTube iceberg. I know putting it into multiple parts is so annoying, but hear me out. The disturbing YouTube iceberg is actually known as like the creepy YouTube iceberg, and it was posted onto Reddit by BeanBurger9, who called it the creepy weird YouTube iceberg. Y'all know I'm dramatic, so it is getting the title of disturbing YouTube iceberg, and I pretty much stand by that, especially as we get into some of the darker layers of the iceberg. What is an iceberg video? If you are unfamiliar, well, iceberg videos are basically like lists. It's an easy way to categorize content, essentially. So at the top of the iceberg, at the tip, at the part that is of course out of the water, is the most relevant information, the most kind of surface level things that a lot of people may already know about. Meanwhile, as you get down and down and down the iceberg all the way to that bottom layer, you're getting in some cases more dark, a little bit more unnerving, just generally speaking not as well-known information. So heavily accessible, common knowledge, tip of the iceberg, obscure, dark, not as well known, and of course you just go through as those layers continue from normal to weird. YouTube has a literal ton of content, and our friend BeanBurger9 did not leave a single stone unturned. I mean, this gets deep. That all to say, this first video is going to be on the first 2 layers of the disturbing YouTube iceberg. I expect we will probably be here for upwards of 45 minutes, so hopefully you guys don't mind going and grabbing a snack, grabbing a drink, get yourself some caffeine, because today we are finally diving down the YouTube rabbit hole to end all YouTube rabbit holes. Starting out at layer 1 on the iceberg, we have the weird side of YouTube. If I were to guess, this is probably referring to the playlist that pops up when you search the weird side of YouTube on YouTube. It contains 200 plus videos with everything from like prosthetic application videos to a video from Ron Herman that just has a bizarre creature yelling at the camera for 9 seconds. No. No. This has over 9 million views. 9 million views. What am I doing with my life? This playlist is not just scary stuff either. There is, for some reason, a 6-second silent clip with the letter G on the screen in this playlist. Like, I mean, there's just everything you could begin to imagine that is weird. Other funny and bizarre finds follow, but I thought I would touch on one of the more kind of serious and scary finds in this collection. This would be the 1940 Soviet film Experiments in the Revival of Organisms, which explores potentially reviving people post-mortem. So it explores the potential and the possibility and the probability of reviving individual organs after someone's died, but then like basically what it would look like to revive the entire person, and it's insane.
The revival of individual organs enabled scientists to proceed to experiment on reviving the whole organism. The revival of the whole organism can be achieved with the help of an apparatus called the auto-ejector.
This is a weird, intense, funny, laughable stroll down YouTube memory lane into some weird freaking content, and probably worth a bit of a scare or a laugh if you have time at some point to look it up. That to say, viewer be warned, I have not vetted this entire playlist. I do not know what lies ahead aside from what I've already told you about, so proceed with caution. Next we have fake anti-piracy screens, and ooh buddy, one of my favorite topics. I have a whole video on the subject. If you want to check it out, I'll have it linked down below. But basically, these fake anti-piracy screens really started making the rounds on YouTube in 2020, while of course we were all in quarantine. What's a fake anti-piracy screen, you might be wondering? Well, an anti-piracy screen is something that has been implemented into a game to discourage piracy, or really into any kind of media. So if, let's say, this game detects that you are using pirated software, it will have some sort of a message and maybe a failsafe to lock you out of the game. For whatever reason, fake anti-piracy screens were like the thing, and people were making these really scary fake ones that are just the stuff of nightmares. Some of the most memorable ones that I can think of off the top of my head would be like this one from Mario Party, where all of the other characters in the game will disappear, leaving only the player. Now the narrator announces that no one wants to party with a criminal before the screen glitches out and you are prevented from playing the game or progressing any further. In another from Animal Crossing New Leaf, Timmy and Tommy, upon the player entering their store, inform the player that they have called the police because they don't want to hang out with a criminal. Yeah, Timmy and Tommy called the cops on you for pirating software. Little snitches. Ultimately, this is a fun, campy trend that will kind of crawl under your skin for the sake of nostalgia. Definitely, once again, worth a bit of a deep dive through YouTube if you have like a favorite kind of vintage game that you would want to look up. Seriously, chances are if you've played it, there is a fake anti-piracy screen for it. On to the next topic, Elsagate / weird nursery rhymes. Not really something I ever thought I would talk about on my channel, but hey, new year, new me, baby, and I guess we're talking about something quite old. So this refers to the 2017 revelation by pretty much everyone else on the internet that YouTube for Kids was freaking weird. I mean, there was a dark side to YouTube for Kids, and it was discovered that there were high amounts of really inappropriate content containing popular children's characters such as Elsa, Spider-Man, The Little Mermaid, like so many more fictional characters that were being targeted to children. Examples of this inappropriate content would include Elsa being pregnant, fictional characters shaving off their body hair, and a lot more, ranging from silly to sinister. Luckily, most of the content and these channels have been taken down, so I don't have a ton of examples to show you here. But I did find a channel that re-uploaded a lot of old videos from one of the biggest Elsagate offenders, Webs and Tiaras. This was like a content farm, and I remember stumbling across their videos before any of this even went public, and just thinking about how bizarre what they were doing was. They would post like 5 videos a day in like full character costumes, just doing weird stuff. In one video that I found titled Spider-Man and Elsa help Pink Spider-Girl, Mermaid, and Toilet with Maleficent, Joker, and Harley Quinn. Elsa and Spider-Man are helping what appears to be a mermaid stuck in a toilet, but it's like her back end is sticking out of the toilet, so it's only her front end in the toilet. Is it like a fetish thing? Because it kind of seems like it could be like a fetish thing. Outside of Elsagate, of course, in this topic we have weird nursery rhymes. This probably refers to channels such as Billy and Surprise Toys, which if you've ever watched a Danny Gonzalez video, you probably already know of, with their Johnny Johnny, yes papa nursery rhyme. And they have a lot of weird nursery rhymes that don't make a lot of sense on their channel, but there are just tons of them all over YouTube. Ultimately, the goal of these content farms is to make as much money as humanly possible off of your children on a daily basis. And it's funny, but it's not at the same time, because outside of ridiculous nursery rhymes that may not really be hurting anyone, you have the much more sinister and serious side of things. And I truly feel like we're always gonna find whatever dark corner that is, because you can't keep those people offline. Glad that YouTube has now cracked down on children's content, but moving on. Salad Fingers, baby. Let's go Salad Fingers. I watched this entire series start to finish over on my Twitch channel. If you want to keep up with me on Twitch, I stream over at twitch.tv/LoeyStromboli, because somebody took both LoeyLane and Loeybug. But we watched the entirety of Salad Fingers start to finish because I had never actually watched it in its entirety. And I'm actually going to have an entire video deep diving through the meta that is Salad Fingers, I think, coming up. But if you do want to watch me watch Salad Fingers, I have it over on my second channel as a little Twitch highlight for you. So Salad Fingers is a now YouTube series that began as a Flash animation all the way back in 2004. The very first upload is called Spoons, and many of you have heard the creepy little croon of Salad Fingers saying,
"Hello. I like rusty spoons. I like to touch them. The feeling of rust against my salad fingers is almost orgasmic."
So we're introduced to Salad Fingers in this video, and we find out that he likes to touch rusty spoons. Not much more to decipher, and I'm pretty sure that when this began, there had to have not been like much more story to it, or maybe there was always some kind of world building around it. I really don't know. But what Salad Fingers turned into was like an 11-part series going into the weird world of Salad Fingers. The wasteland that this character seems to live in is post-apocalyptic at best, stricken with effects from the Great War that Salad Fingers himself refers to all the time, and usually he's the only one in these videos alive. Sometimes he will have friends with him, such as his beloved finger puppets or other figments of his imagination, but usually it's just him, save for the occasional armless zombie banging its head into his door. What did that say? It says, "Harry, 3 stars, happy to help." But his arms are gone. He seems very angry that Salad Fingers is lactating. This was a decade-long exploration into Salad Fingers' world, and it is a must-watch for all lovers of all things creepy. If you just want a little bit of a trip down memory lane, if you've never watched it in its entirety, I highly recommend it. Like, I had never done it before, and it was so much fun. For my viewers at home, Salad Fingers does touch on mental health, PTSD, self-harm topics, and more. So do watch with caution, please. There's a lot of animated gore as well. Take care of yourselves. Next up on the iceberg, we have lost episode creepypasta videos. One of my favorite genres of creepypasta are the lost episodes, and this is where writers will take a popular TV show, say like The Simpsons, for example, which we're going to be looking into today, and they'll write about a supposedly lost episode in which something out of place will happen, something that wouldn't normally make sense for the show, usually with some sort of story about how a writer was depressed or they were about to be fired, so they made something sick and twisted, and now it's a lost episode that no one can find. Usually these are centered around children's shows, things like SpongeBob, things like Ed, Edd n Eddy, or Recess, just shows that especially dark content would not make much sense in place of. And usually they're from like the 90s or earlier. So there's a bit of believability that, yeah, you could totally lose an episode of a show that is a little bit older. Once you create content nowadays, it's backed up on so many clouds, it's actually very hard to lose it forever. When something goes on the internet, it tends to stay for good. But that certainly wasn't the case back in the 90s or even early 2000s. Technology just wasn't that advanced, and things were not kept as up to date as they are now. So we're going to be looking into, as an example of this topic, the supposedly lost Simpsons episode, Dead Bart. Now, this is a YouTube video that was created based off of the creepypasta. It's a mock-up using footage of The Simpsons to portray the story that was written in Dead Bart. In it, Bart ignores the warnings of a flight attendant not to use his electronics as their plane takes off. This results in some way or another with him being ejected from the plane in the air and landing onto the ground in a very un-Simpsons-like gory way. What follows is slowed and glitchy audio of his family crying, a funeral, and lots of visual and audio static. Much like with the fake Antipiracy screens, if you have a favorite show, it probably has a lost episode creepypasta written about it. Chances are there could even be a mock-up of it on YouTube. It's an interesting genre to dive through, with some being scarier than others, but nonetheless a very good addition onto the Iceberg. From that, we go into Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a series which follows 3 characters who we will call Red, Yellow, and Green because we never really get any names for them. It might even appear as an innocent kid show on the surface. The characters sing about being creative, time itself, and also how being different doesn't mean that you can't love each other. But by the end of each of their happy jingles is something darker, as true and valid as the cheerier part of the song, but clearly not nearly as upbeat. In the Time song, the characters watch as they themselves go gray and their bodies decompose, their skin sags. They watch the effects of time wreak havoc on their very own bodies. At the end of the song about love, it's shown that the innocent woodland creatures singing to the yellow friend in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared might just be worshipping a giant head named Malcolm, who they feed gravel to appease. Basically, they're in a cult and they ask Yellow to cleanse his brain and forget everything he ever knew before coming to them in order to be truly loved and accepted. Now, a huge pointer to what all of this means probably lies in the first ever episode of the series. At the end of the song, the camera breaks away from the puppets and we see what looks like a crude mock-up of the scene that we were just watching, as well as cameras and producers behind the scenes that we couldn't normally see from the original angle. The characters in the show are heavily controlled to be perfect, and if they rebel or act out in any way, they are punished in turn. This punishment usually begins in the form of the lessons that they learn turning dark and sinister. Just like Salad Fingers, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a piece of YouTube history that could never ever be forgotten. You've probably seen at least one episode of it in your life, and it began on YouTube in 2011, and the latest update on it is that there is a rumored television show coming to Channel 4. The teaser to the show was posted back in 2018, but we haven't really heard anything since. One of the things that I thought was interesting to show here, because it was something I had never seen, were these really creative help videos that the channel posted to fund their Kickstarter, and it basically features the characters being like taken hostage, and then you're encouraged, of course, to check out the Kickstarter. So I thought I would show you that because I don't think they're as widely spread as the others.
If you're watching this, then we need your help.
So, Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Tons of fascinating stuff to dive through here, and always a fun trip to rewatch, to say the absolute least. I didn't showcase much of it here because the music will get me copyright struck, but very, very fun. And the last thing on layer 1 is actually called Smile HD, and it's sort of like Salad Fingers and Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, but I admitted on stream that I did not know what Smile HD was, and my audience was horrified. Well, part of me is part horrified, but Smile HD is a piece of My Little Pony fan fiction turned into a music video that is just filled with nonsense. The musical track in the background of this video seems lighthearted enough. It states how Pinkie Pie, the main pony in this video, wants to see her friends smile. So she accomplishes this by beating the ever-living crap out of them. What ensues is a lot of animated gore, ponies shooting beams of light at each other to destroy each other, and just chaos. I mean, just chaos. Kind of a funny note to end off layer 1 on, to say the absolute least. I mean, it wasn't something that I had the pleasure of experiencing, but a lot of my viewers were really familiar with it, and I guess if you were into My Little Pony, you probably saw the Smile HD. I never went through a brony phase though. Sometimes I'm thankful, sometimes I'm sad about that. On to layer 2. In layer 2, we're getting a little weirder, getting a little darker. And we're starting off this layer with I Feel Fantastic, which might strike a bell for some of you. Uploaded in 2009 by YouTube user Creepyblog, I Feel Fantastic features a blonde puppet of sorts singing a song about how they feel fantastic. This puppet looks like a mannequin, but it moves around. It could also just be someone in like a rubber head. I don't know. Now, the video itself is unnerving, the I Feel Fantastic song, unnerving to say the least, but there are even weirder moments outside of just like the general content of the video, including a shot of the mannequin featured in the video in all black, as well as a single frame of the woods with no context. The description box reads as follows, and there's touches here on Greek mythology, so please excuse my absolute butchering. I did my best. In ancient Greek mythology, Pygmalion was a highly accomplished Cypriot sculptor. Though skilled at imitating the human form and well acquainted with its subtleties, he became disgusted by it when he witnessed the Propytides prostituting themselves. These women were punished by Venus for their lack of worship with a coarseness of skin and a crudeness of nature, and were then forced into prostitution. Seeing this, Pygmalion the sculptor was repelled and could no longer appreciate women. Seemingly alone, Pygmalion sought to create for himself a perfect, pure, unsullied companion. He used his particular skills to this end. He created a statue bride. What you are about to watch is a mysterious video. Its origin is attributed variously, and almost certainly spuriously, to various abstract artists or surrealists. The truth is that what we are seeing, and what we perceive to be strange and disturbing, is actually beauty to its creator. Perhaps what we are viewing is the work of a modern Pygmalion. To him, her toneless voice, the paleness of her skin, and the comparative vibrancy of her lips may indeed be the very embodiment of a perfect woman. Consider the mind scope of the creator. In whose mind does this appear beautiful? In whose mind is this pure, near worshipful? Are we missing out on his perspective? Who are we to be afraid or to judge them? He may well love her fully, perhaps more fully than any of us could ever hope to be loved. In the mind of her creator, she is a near goddess, the perfect representation not just of femininity, but the peak of human potential, a perfectly satisfactory being. How does that kind of unconditional love feel? Well, how does she feel? Fantastic. That's all I really got to say on that. I don't understand the point of I Feel Fantastic. Maybe it is supposed to be more meta than it is on the surface, but a weird video that has circulated for years, to say the least. Moving on to Petscop. Kind of think Petscop may have fit better in layer 1, but I guess it is a bit more obscure. Petscop follows a supposedly haunted game cartridge down a family's dark and twisted history. I have a multi-part analysis up on my channel, but in essence, Petscop is a 24-part absolute masterpiece of an ARG. We see gameplay throughout these videos created by the fictional production company Garalina. And the premise of the game seems innocent enough. As the green-faced protagonist of the game, you walk around and capture pets, but we also find out in this game that children are exactly like pets and you can capture them in the same way, which leaves some things to uncover for sure. Though these pets and children are afraid, through our love and understanding of them, we can show them that there's nothing to be afraid of. However, our actions as the player of this game don't really match up with that. The player spends their time tricking the creatures of this game, such as draining a rain cloud of its water into a bucket, thus depriving a flower nearby of the water and capturing them both as his pets. There are heavy themes throughout the series, so once again, viewer beware in watching this. But essentially, most of the game takes place in the dark underbelly of the bright and cheery overworld. A secret hidden away by someone who wanted it to be found. And oh boy, did our player ever find it. In that underbelly is where the story of Petscop takes place. Lingering down in the dark, unearthing family secrets that go back decades. On to Beasts, which I had never heard of before. This is a 2014 animation on YouTube that features these green alien-like creatures. Each explains what they are the beast of. The butcher is the beast of meat, and he chops the meat for people to eat. Meanwhile, the farmer is a beast who grows the wheat to make the bread to eat with the meat. And the point of this little jingle is that we are all beasts in our society that keep it running, but essentially at what cost? Even a lawyer is seen as the beast who writes the deeds. The video is posted by a user called Treats for Beasts, and the description box reads, "Are you a contributing member of your society?" Not gonna play any of the audio here, but watch it, I guess. An interesting video that looks like it was animated in paint, but in a very impressive way. Up next on the list, we have the pinnacle of all things creepy, Local 58. Local 58 was originally begun in 2017 by creator Chris Straub. This is a fictional news station that features news, a children's show, and much more. But it's not as lighthearted as one may think. The very first video, "You Are in the Fastest Available Route," for example, seems to contain footage of a late night drive turned sinister. The driver is told to follow signs for "Do Not Enter" as they drive through the secluded woods after making a U-turn. And what happens is freaky, to say the absolute least.
You are on the fastest route. In 2.8 miles, keep right to stay on Service Causeway H516. You will arrive at your destination in 14 minutes. Head east for 1/4 of a mile, then follow signs for "Do Not Enter." Continue on unnamed road, then, in 300 feet, turn off your headlights. Rerouting. Make a U-turn. Your destination is behind you. Rerouting. In 500 feet. Your destination will be on in 300 feet. Your destination in 250 feet. Rerouting. Your destination will be in 50 feet. You will arrive at your destination.
You have arrived.
And meanwhile, contingency carries a startling message. I'm gonna read it to you all here, but it is to be used only in the event of United States complete surrender to insurmountable enemy forces. Public broadcast only upon confirmed condition. Now, in this, we can see it wasn't supposed to be used past a specific date in 1970. So we can imagine that Local 58 is quite an old news station, and what we are watching happens in a past that luckily never came to be. The worst has come to pass. Despite the sacrifices of our citizens and the might of our armed forces, the United States has been forced to surrender to her enemy. Though they may occupy our borders, our streets, and our homes, the enemy will never occupy our spirit. That is why all Americans are now called upon to act, to preserve the memory of the United States, clear and bright, untarnished and uncompromised. Know that I have already taken action in the company of my family and loved ones. Now all Americans, every man, woman, and child, are called upon to act before the moment passes by. Let our united resolve echo through history. Even in defeat, we refuse to yield. Even in defeat, we claim victory. This message is signed by the President of the United States, and dark instructions are to follow. And at the end of the video, Local 58 issues a correction stating earlier today, the station aired what appeared to be a warning message from a U.S. government agency. This has been confirmed as a hoax. Local 58 apologizes for any confusion that may have resulted. Considering the implications of that video are much more sinister than just a little confusing, they probably have more explaining to do. But this paints the photo of a very scary scene for America back in the 60s and 70s. I've watched many a theory video on this, and there's so much information to go through that I could talk about in this video for hours at this point, but I will spare you for now and just have it linked down below. There are so many fascinating videos to watch, and if you guys really want, I can do a deep dive on this topic all to itself. I love Chris Straub. He's also the writer of Candle Cove and an incredible creator who I admire so much. So, Local 58. Must watch. While this channel does take place in a dark reality, an alternate reality that seems to have set itself over the United States decades ago, viewer be warned, there are serious mentions of self-harm, and I just wanted to give a little mention there for that. Hey Walter is a video that does not exist on the internet anymore, at least in its original form. The original title of the video read, "Hi Walter, it's me, Patrick." This was in 2009. Now it exists under a channel from Peter Sanchez, who just reposted it as, "Hey Walter, meet my girlfriend." In it, the poster of this video, who we can assume is named Patrick, talks to his friend Walter about a girl that he met at the mall. He talks very highly of her, about all of these qualities, but then he introduces us to his girlfriend in a very dark and sinister way.
"Hi Walter, I was at the mall today and guess what happened? I met the most wonderful girl. We went shopping at JCPenney's and she tried on a lot of clothes. And then we got kind of tired of the mall and I brought her back to my place. And I know she hates cameras, Walter, but I'm gonna show you her anyways. You ready?"
Now, this video went largely unnoticed for years, and of course, like a decade after it was posted, it actually began to be linked to a missing person named Kayla Berg. Kayla disappeared 2 months before the video was originally posted. She kind of resembled the girl in the video, though of course you don't get a very good look at her, and she was wearing something similar to what the girl in the video was wearing. The internet did what it does in these situations. It went insane with theories, accusations, and much more. This led to the FBI themselves reaching out to the poster of this video, making contact, and questioning them about the contents of the video. They were able to confirm both the name of the actor in the video who played Patrick and the girl in the video. Both of them were safe and secure and okay. This was actually a clip produced by someone else, and the guy who played Patrick was just like an actor, and nobody wanted it to be tied to Kayla Berg in any way. It was just some kind of freak coincidence. So they didn't have any ties to this missing person, and it was simply a shock video in the early days of YouTube. But still fascinating and sad, and I'm sure also hard for the family to watch go viral. Moving on to another video, this time titled "Obey the Walrus." Now, this was posted in 2008 by David Nunez with a bizarre description. I'm just gonna have to read you. Obey it. Obey the Walrus, known in Spanish as Obedience la Morsa, is a video that was allegedly created by a Latin American cult known as La Morsa, or the Walrus, and it is said that bad things happen after watching the video. Now, the woman featured in the video is actually old footage of an American born as, and they use this woman's dead name here. She did transition, so I'm going to respect that and not call her by her dead name. Her name is Sandy Crisp, and she is more popularly known by the nickname Goddess Bunny. The Goddess Bunny obtained her figure when she contracted polio as a child. The Goddess Bunny has nothing to do with the cult of La Morsa. It is simply archived footage of her that has been edited and spread on the internet, along with stories of being haunted for the sole purpose of making you poo bricks. For more info on the Goddess Bunny, go to goddessbunny.com/info. This domain is now for sale. In this video, the woman in it dances in various objects, kind of staring blankly at the camera to weird music in the background. It ends with a clip of her in a clown hat walking towards the camera before it cuts out to a walrus. And that's a video. But there wound up being so much more fascinating stuff behind Sandy Crisp that I think that people have no idea about when they just stumble across this random video online. Sandra Crisp passed away this past year in January of 2021, only 2 weeks after her 61st birthday. while battling complications from COVID-19. She starred in films, TV shows, music videos, and was a celebrated drag queen. Sandra had a long life filled with hardships and struggles and abuse in her past, and was very vocal about it, seemingly online and in other public spaces. And it weirds me out that this video is just used as like a shock thing. I know that the scary part, of course, is not her. It's like, why would this cult take her dancing and then tell people to obey the walrus, the satanic walrus cult or whatever? But that to be said, I hope that Sandra Crisp rests in peace. And it's insane, the life that she led, that you would just never know based off of this video. Nutty. On to Blank Room Soup. And oh, my Blank Room Soup, my beloved Blank Room Soup. Where would I be without this video? This was one of the very first strange things that I found on the internet that inspired me to start doing what I do today. One of the original YouTube oddities that threw me for a loop and had me scouring through the web trying to find answers. Blank Room Soup is a video of a man eating soup with what looks like a large spoon or like a ladle or something. But the weird part begins when another person enters the room wearing a large Funko Pop-esque white head over their face. The man immediately starts to cry, and the other person in the suit attempts to like comfort him, attempts to calm him down. Now eventually a second man joins them, and while the man eating the soup cries harder and harder, seemingly disturbed by their comfort, they just keep rubbing his back. So trying to say, hey buddy, everything's good, but everything is not good. Nothing is good in this situation. Now, my best friend Eleanor and I have a podcast called Internet Urban Legends, available exclusively on Spotify. We did a whole podcast app about this one episode, so I'll have our podcast linked down below if you want to go and check it out. The real story that we go into depth in on that episode of our podcast is darker than you could ever begin to imagine. The masked creatures in this video are called Ray Ray. Now, Ray Ray is a character dreamt up by Raymond Percy, who has ties to Disney and worked on films such as Wreck-It Ralph and Frozen. Before he began to work for Disney in that current form, in like the early 2000s, think like 2002 on, he was performing along with other people as Ray Ray in like Los Angeles clubs and bars and all that kind of stuff. And Ray Ray had like a whole routine. They were kind of famous. One night their vans were broken into. Their little tour vans that they had were broken into while they were performing, and several of the Ray Ray costumes were missing. Weeks later, Raymond gets an email with the video attached that you just saw, and he uploaded it to his Daily Motion titled Freaky Soup Guy, with the caption, "People who look like us doing things that we would never do. We promise." It's a rabbit hole that goes deep, very, very deep. But Blank Room Soup is one of YouTube's greatest mysteries, I think. And I'm so thankful that it has been archived. It was not lost to like Daily Motion, you know. I'm thankful that it exists on YouTube in its current form. Next up, we have The Dawn Is Your Enemy. I also realized I was just like shrinking down. Like, I've been filming this for over an hour, so I've just been like sagging to the floor. I'm on my second wind. I'm almost done with the second layer. We can do this. So between 2005 and 2010, The Dawn Is Your Enemy was used as a sign-off bump for Adult Swim, or I guess technically a sign-on bump for Adult Swim. You'll understand. So basically, this was kind of used as like a scare tactic to get kids who had stayed up way too late into the early hours of the morning watching Cartoon Network to get the heck off before Adult Swim started their block. It was roughly 10-ish seconds of creepy music as well as like metal scraping and bumping sounds. And many people remember this and remember like basically being terrified when it came on, when they did in fact stay up way too late watching Cartoon Network. This noise was accompanied by a pencil drawing of like a pair of eyes and like a sun coming up over the horizon. The Dawn Is Your Enemy was retired from Adult Swim and wasn't used as a sign-on bump anymore. And people weren't really sure why. That was until a story came out about a very strange thing that had happened regarding this piece of media. According to the story, the footage stayed on for like a beat too long after the usual 9 to 10 seconds. And the metal scraping sound got louder and louder as the image just didn't fade away. It ended up being 2 full minutes of pure torture. What was described was sounds of people screaming and crying for help, horrific noises described as the guttural death rattles of people dying. I have goosebumps all over my body. I hate this one. I love it, but I hate it. In the last moments, as that scraping sound got louder and the sound of people screaming and crying got louder and louder, suddenly the screen cut out to tones and bars, so it was just like a blank screen and it was gone, as though someone had manually pulled the plug. Apparently, Cartoon Network addressed this as a channel frequency hijacking, but they never talked about the horrific situation any further. Where did that audio come from, and why did they have access to it in the first place? Especially knowing that there were children watching. How had anyone gotten access to those kinds of sounds? Well, while the bump itself is real, that story was not, and it was actually a creepypasta that widely circulated the internet, and in fact inspired a longer version of the usual bump that was uploaded onto YouTube, complete with the sun winking at you, just as it did in the creepypasta before the channel was cut. Now, what's interesting is that in May of 2020, Adult Swim actually not only acknowledged, but kind of poked fun at the creepypasta with their new sign-off bump, "The Dawn is Your Frenemy." They played cheery music instead of the usual creepy stuff, and a little red balloon went up over the horizon, and the sun winked at you before it stopped, showing that they not only knew about the creepypasta, but potentially that they were fans. But yeah, kind of a cool and interesting way for Adult Swim to pay homage to the creepypasta that started it all. Last but certainly not least, for this video, we are talking about username 666. If you had the time to watch my video, my house walkthrough, this is actually from that same channel. It's Nana and then a string of numbers after it, but username 666 was posted in 2008, and basically this video depicts an early version of YouTube and what would happen if you were to go to youtube.com/666. According to the contents of the video, if you refreshed it enough, the site would go all glitchy, all videos were now unavailable, and called error 666. Suddenly, a video titled 666 is now available. It features glitchy, freaky visuals, what looks like organs and blood through animation, and the person recording their screen can no longer exit out of the YouTube page. They can't get away. They're simply helpless to watch as this thing on the screen claws and more red stuff flies everywhere. It's really gory. There's even a character that debuts in this video, and towards the end of the video, the hand reaches out of its little box towards the player, and we hear what sounds like somebody knocking on a door, getting louder and louder and louder before the video cuts. At the end of this video, we had a link to my house walkthrough. I was intrigued and fell down the rabbit hole. I cannot believe the horrors that lie within Nana's channel. There are so many incredible pieces of horror content that date back so long ago. I mean, this username 666 video is like one of the first examples of something like that ever existing on YouTube, and it really like fossilized what YouTube looked like at that time. It's a perfect screenshot of what it looked like turned so sinister and so dark. That all to say, that is it for part 1 of the disturbing YouTube iceberg. It is 3 in the morning. I have been filming this for like well over an hour and a half, and I spent hours and hours researching this very first part, but I'm so glad to finally have it ready for you. If you enjoy this and you want part 2, you can let me know by going ahead and giving this video a thumbs up, and please subscribe to my channel if you have not already. I am really excited about this series. I love Iceberg videos. I've been watching a ton of them, specifically Wendigoon's. He has a disturbing movie, Iceberg, that if you guys want more Iceberg stuff after this, I'll link it down below. It is one of the best Iceberg videos on YouTube, I want to say, and I'm excited to kind of wet my feet in this world and do something a little bit different. I'm tired. I need to go to bed. I need to rip this wig off my head and wash my face. So without any further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and call it a night. Thank you so very much for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I love you very, very much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.